Everyone, and good afternoon. I'm Deborah Pascaret, and I'm the director of the Creative Aging Program here at the Wallis Annenberg Center for the Performing Arts. And I'm so excited this afternoon to be able to present to you our first culminating performance of Stage Stories 3. So Stage Stories is our program within Grow at the Wallis that has memoir, storytelling, personal narrative, different classes for older adults to express themselves. We have a lot of fun in the classes, lots of different prompts and ideas and talking about writing. And in this level of the class, we actually start to delve into fiction and poetry, as well as memoir and always storytelling, as in performing, which we will be doing today. And so this is the end of the first session of this level of the course, and it will continue on, but this group is our very first group to take this course that I just created this semester. So I'm so excited for you to listen to all of the readers and writers reading their work is what I'm trying to say. And at the end of the show, we'll have a few minutes for Q&A. And so we will come back. So if you have any questions, keep them in mind, either about the program or about the pieces that the writers wrote. You'll be able to speak with them. And then we will also, at the end, be able to talk about upcoming classes, etc., if any of you are interested in those. Also, we will, if you have any comments during the show, you can put them in the chat, and our writers will be able to see that after the show as we save those as well. So I would love to get the session started by introducing our first writer for the afternoon, Ellie.
Thank you, Deborah. Hi, my name is Ellie. My prompt for this story was to write from the perspective of an inanimate object. The title of my story is Transformation. I was once a tall pine tree in a huge forest, breezes whistling through my branches, squirrels scampering up my trunk. Life was good until humans arrived with terrifying and noisy machines. They cut me down and turned me into lumber. I was afraid. A rack in a dusty, sprawling Home Depot became my new home. I watched people pass by, wondering what was to become of me. One day, a man named Bob Goldhammer picked me out and took me home to his basement workshop, where he had saws, drills, screwdrivers, hammers, and nails. He seemed excited to have me there. I felt curious. Bob carefully formed me into pieces of different sizes and shapes. Thankfully, it didn't hurt. Sometimes he whistled, which reminded me of home. He gently caressed me, and I could tell that I was being transformed into something wonderful. Bob sanded and stained and assembled me until one day he stood back smiling. "You're finished," he said. He seemed very pleased, and so was I. On June 17th, 1991, I heard Bob shouting, "Really, Ellie Bell? Benji's here? I'm a grandfather." I didn't know what that meant, but I felt happy with Bob. He put me into his car and we drove from Ohio to California. When we arrived, Bob's daughter Ellie and her husband Tim greeted us. Ellie was holding a very tiny human. Bob kissed the baby's head. "Benji," he whispered. Then he reached into the car and lifted me out. Ellie squealed, "You made Benjamin a rocking horse. It's beautiful. Wow, I'm a rocking horse." I lived in Benjamin's room, listening to him cry and giggle and say words like doggy and dada and mama. When he was big enough, Tim put Benjamin onto my back his tiny hands grasping my handles. He called me Horsey. He sat on me and rocked while we watched Sesame Street and Barney the Purple Dinosaur. Sometimes his friends rode on me. I felt overjoyed. When Bob would come to visit, he looked at me proudly and stroked my back. I felt grateful. I watched Benjamin grow and grow. Even when he was too big to ride on me, I lived in Benjamin's room. And now that he's 31, I still am a beloved part of the family and a precious reminder of Grandpa Bob. I feel loved and so very content. Thank you. Now I'd like to introduce our next writer, Frank.
Hello, my name is Frank Papia, and the piece I'll be reading is titled Always Room for One More, and it was written for the prompt, a holiday, a secret, and a neighbor. It was the last part of the year, turkey and mistletoe time. Jeremy Jameson was tossing a baseball around his front yard, trying to make sense of the excessive wanderlust that had recently moved from his dreams into a good part of his waking hours. White Cloud, Kansas had begun to be insufficient and the breeder of boredom. Jeremy knew he had to take flight, but he was still in the look over the nest. Maybe I can. What will happen if I do? Stage of buying the ticket out of town. After saving the wind for his imaginary team by catching a deep drive to center field, Jeremy's attention was drawn to the Better Moving with Buster moving van that was pulling up in front of the old Leonardi house. Within seconds, a lime green polka dot covered Morris Minor station wagon appeared, seemingly out of nowhere, and came to a screeching halt inches away from the back bumper of the Better Moving with Buster moving van. Out of the Morris came 10 clown-clad dwarfs, some with giant bicycle horns tied to their belt-like sashes. The others carried a variety of Woolworth-purchased toy instruments, trumpets, trombones, tiny violins, and even a little drummer boy drum. Jeremy watched the clown parade stroll up the walkway to the front door. One by one, they entered. The last one, with the tiny fedora adorned with a peacock feather, turned and made eye contact with Jeremy. They both smiled and waved. Jeremy's bedroom was the perfect observation point to look directly into the windows of his clown neighbors. Jeremy spent many nights being seduced by the dime store orchestra's instrumentals. Shadows on pulled-down shades became fantasy images of trapeze artists, lions jumping through fiery rings, tuxedo-adorned ringmasters, and of course, clowns. They all danced through the crispness of the night and settled on the eyes and ears of an imagination at full throttle, ready to break away 18-year-old. As spring began its soft push on winter, the Better Moving with Buster moving van was back. Jeremy ran down the stairs and opened his front door just in time to see the clowns in an ethereal ballet of goodbye. They waved. Jeremy waved back. One by one, they slipped into the lime green polka dot covered Morris Minor station wagon. The peacock feather clown was the last one to reach the Morris. Instead of moving into the car, he stopped, looked over at Jeremy, and captured his longing in midair. He winked, smiled, and then climbed to the little bit of room that was left on the roof rack Taking out his toy trumpet, he blew a few notes, then sang out, off key, I might add. It ain't no secret, it ain't no secret. All it takes is the first step. From rolled down windows, a 9-clown-clad chorus joined in. And there's always room for more, always room for one more. Jeremy hesitated for no more than it takes a gnat to blink, ran into the house, packed a bag, grabbed his coat, and left a note for his mother. Mom, don't worry. I'll be okay. I've gone to join the circus. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce the next writer, Nita.
Thank you, Frank. Hello, everyone. My name is Nina. The story I wrote was written to the prompt A Neighbor, a Holiday, and a Secret, and I called it A Well-Kept Secret. When I was 6, my single mother received weekly sinus treatments during the winter. Lucky for me, the doctor's office was just across the street from us. It meant that I was able to accompany her. Crossing the street twice a week, I skipped alongside my mother, holding her hand, envisioning myself already in the warm waiting room, filled with faint fragrance of chamomile, the side table overflowing with news magazines. Entering that grown-up world was an adventurous holiday. I overheard mysterious words like palpitations, sciatica, insomnia, and secretive whispers. Oh, he must never know. While a furrowed brow scanned the room and a finger tapped against a pair of lips. Grown-ups lived in such an exciting world. The doctor would greet us with a broad smile. Ah, here are the ladies. Look, even his eyes were smiling. I saved your favorite news magazine, as he handed me the latest edition. While my mother received her therapy, I settled into the waiting room sofa to study the newest pictures of my favorite queen, of puzzled-looking politicians, scientists in ill-fitting suits and wild hair, skiers shushing down steep mountainsides in clouds of snow, and, of course, my ears perked to catch interesting whisperings. It is how I learned that the butcher's wife hit him over the head with a kitchen pot. I never accepted treats from her after hearing that. My mother's treatment concluded. The two would sit next to me, the doctor asking, "So, what's happening in the world?" Queen Elizabeth was wearing yet another new outfit, I would say. He would knowingly nod. She has lots of closets in that palace. One day, as we agreed to examine Queen Elizabeth's outfit again at our next meeting, he asked, "How would you like to holiday with my missus and me? We just bought a fine horse." Oh, a fine horse. I was intrigued. With my mother, he glanced at her, chuckled, and looking at the ceiling said, I'll have to ask at home. Because I will only visit with her, I reiterated as I curtsied goodbye. On our way home, my mother asked, what do you think of the doctor? He's lucky to have a fine horse, was my reply. Years later, long years later, she told me the doctor had hoped to adopt me. Mother, why didn't you tell me? Maybe you'd have packed your suitcase. Never, never. I would much rather have you, Mother, than 100 fine horses. And now, please welcome our next writer, Gregory.
Thank you, Nina. Hello, everybody. I'm Gregory. And today my piece is titled Mickey's Holiday and is taken from the prompt, a neighbor, a secret, and a holiday. And I'd like to add that no children or animals were harmed in this story. Our neighbor and landlord, Jack, lived next door with his wife and their 10-year-old adopted daughter, Melody, or Dodie. Now, I found Jack fascinating because he worked as the Keystone Cop at the Movieland Wax Museum. He would stand just inside the entrance as a motionless wax cop with the tall hat and black baton and startle the hell out of you with a big smile and a warm, hearty hello. Now, Jack loved animals, so much so that he secretly kept a rescued caged ocelot in his backyard. And sitting in a short, mostly leafless tree was a 2-foot-tall chained monkey called Mickey. Now, Jack's daughter, Dodie, was a spoiled, rotten brat, and it was never more evident in the way she would tease Mickey mercilessly with food. She cruelly took sheer delight every time she could make him scream and lunge toward her at the end of his chain. When Jack was home, Mickey usually sat on Jack's shoulder to eat. And more than a few times, we heard Dodie catching hell for bothering Mickey. We told her to be careful, that Mickey would one day get his revenge. And she laughed. Well, Mickey's holiday finally arrived one warm and beautiful sunny midsummer day. My younger brother and sister and I were outside playing in the driveway when we heard Mickey screaming and screeching in his backyard, and we knew Dodie was messing with him again. But then very quickly, we heard Mickey's screams getting closer, when suddenly Dodie and Mickey exploded from around the back corner of Jack's house, with Mickey sitting piggyback astride Dodie's shoulders as she's screaming, her pigtails in his hands, yanking her head back and forth, screaming his head off in total vengeful ecstasy as he rode her like a championship rodeo bull rider. We three immediately ran into the house, shut and locked the door behind us, our mouths hanging open, eyes bugged out in shock, watching as Dodie ran to the locked door, screaming, "Let me in, let me in," with Mickey banging her head into the screen door. As Dodie ran around in circles, Mickey finally jumped off and ran back to his mostly leafless tree. And I have a story we can still uproariously laugh about. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Jackie.
Thank you, Gregory. Hi, my name is Jackie. And the prompt I wrote about was to write a poem based on a past memory. And the title is Birthday Celebration. When I was 5, did I think I would be 25? No, so old to be 25. As I reached 15, I thought 25 is not so far away or old. Yes, I would maybe be 25. But 50? 50 is so old. No, I will never live to be 50 years old. That's way too old. But how glorious it was to celebrate me being 25. My husband surprised me with dinner in San Francisco. And then a return flight back to LA that same night. Thought I would always remember every detail of that exciting night. Wish I could remember how we got to the restaurant, what we ate, or the restaurant's name. I don't remember anything else about that night or the flight, except I do remember my eyes were wide with fright because I am a white knuckler. As I squeezed his hand into mine and held on for dear life as the plane took off into the dark night. But it is not a surprise. I do not remember more details of that special night because I have had 25 plus more birthdays, each one a big surprise as I continue to celebrate me past that old 50-year mark that has now been upgraded to a 100-year mark. Especially today, celebrating me with all of you makes it another special and glorious birthday that I will remember. So put another candle on my birthday cake. I am another year old today. Happy birthday to me. It's now my pleasure to introduce Lori.
Thank you, Jackie. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, my name is Lori, and I'm writing to the prompt about a neighbor, a secret, and a holiday. And I called my story, Listening to the Stories of Old. Bridie lives across the street from me with her cat, Smokey. My new neighbor has lived there for nearly 62 years in the same idyllic bungalow with a true blue front door and cottage top. Bridie is an Irish name meaning exalted one, fire goddess, power, strength, vigor, and virtue. I moved into a gentrified area, which is as eclectic in its homes as it is with its people. It has the charm of the 1950s and trees that were planted here long before that. During my nightly walks with my dog, I pass by the true blue front door and see Bridie standing in the opening crack. I hear her calling, "Smokey, Smokey." If her eye catches me walking by, she calls out, "Hello, dearie," as if seeing me for the very first time. Come over and talk to me. In my shy, polite way, I oblige and cross the street. And for more nights than I can count, she tells me some of her life stories once again. What is included in every story is her question to me. Did you know my husband George died? Oh, George was a lovely man. You would have liked him. My Georgie was intelligent and kind. Then she would ask me if I had children. Her and George had never had children. And then in her very thick Irish accent, she would say, do you want to know a secret? I'm not doing very well. I'm very lonely. I would look at her and say, oh, Bridie, you look wonderful. She would look surprised and say, I do? I'm 21 and a bit. And I never tell anyone about the bit, with a big smile on her face. Then once again, she would say, did you know my husband George died? As if telling me for the first time. Bridie would always reassure me she would be okay, and what she wanted to do more than anything is go on holiday back to Ireland. She would tell me what Irish people were like and how social they were, not like the people here in Canada. Oh, how she wished she could go on holiday one more time home to where the local pub was warm and funny and full of people and cheer and a few beer. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce our next writer, Megan.
Thank you, Laurie. My name is Megan. My story is titled Grits and Guilt, written to the prompt Hera, a Welsh word meaning a sense of longing for a place or home. In Nantucket, polenta is on the menu. I'm compelled to try it. Yet again, I'm transported to our backyard at 9 Athol Avenue, Johannesburg, late 60s. Our sweet and slight nanny, Rosie, tending to us with her polio-ridden limpy leg. I forever aware that she has left her children at the farmlands with their grandmother. Guilt pervades me. It is so unfair. I feel it, yet cannot express it, though try to discuss it with my parents. They say the money helps to educate her children. It doesn't make me feel better. Samson tends to the garden. It's an acre, a huge vegetable patch packed with goodness. 6-foot-tall corn on the cob invites a deadly black cobra to take up residence. Samson is the hero as he slays the snake. Though my father is upset, he does not like to kill wildlife. I gaze into Samson's humble room at the bottom of the garden, small and dark, one little window. His shirt is hanging on a rusty nail. Another twinge of guilt. We gather around the evening pot in a courtyard outside the kitchen door under a rotating circular washing line. Rosie has made a large pot of maize meal known as millie meal or pup. It is covered in a savory, smooth onion and tomato sauce seasoned with just the right amount of salt and pepper. Stewed chuck beef adding more flavor. My sisters and I wait patiently as Rosie hands us little scoops in our fingers, and we delicately savor each morsel. It feels like a treat and privilege to eat with Rosie and Samson. Our evening meal with our parents after their hard day's work, not as much fun as this. It's like forbidden fruit, though, again, the guilt that we are yet again taking more. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Lucy.
Good evening. Maybe not evening, afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much, Megan. My name is Lucy. And I have two selections that I will be reading today. The first one is written on the prompt Hirath, and I call it 6 column lunes for Hirath. Surreptitiously revealing itself, like snow leopards quietly appearing through blinding snowstorms. Hushed Hirath dreams, ethereal arms wrap around me, feelings of comfort. A mystic self-transcendence just for a moment longer, hungering, pining, desiring. Timelessness and weightlessness, connected souls I cannot revisit but long to. An ineffable feeling here now, dangling for days and then gone. A yearning place to which I cannot return. It doesn't exist. My second piece was written to the prompt, a neighbor, a holiday, and a secret. It's a crisp fall day with Halloween right around the corner. Maple trees signal the coming of winter, wearing their brightly colored red, yellow, purple coats. This is Sarah's favorite holiday. Fond memories of trick-or-treating in her childhood neighborhood fill her thoughts today. Instead of ding-dong, trick-or-treat, candy and bag, and on to the next house, she remembers how each neighbor was special and how they would invite her and her brother inside to get a good look at their costumes and chat for a while. Sitting on her front porch, Sarah stares at the vacant house of her used-to-be next-door neighbor. For weeks now, she's been hoping to see a for sale sign in the front yard. It's a little worse for wear, but Sarah is still determined to be the first one to put in an offer. She's had dreams of moving her mother close to her since her dad died, and this house would be ideal. So the day came, sign up, offer in, sign down. The house is hers. With a few repairs and glamour touches, Sarah's mom moves in. Coffee mornings with her mom are the norm now. They sit for hours laughing and chit-chatting about almost anything. Sarah's mom is not only her best friend, but her neighbor now as well. Life is near perfect. It's a once-a-week ritual for them, out for lunch and a bit of window shopping. Today, though, they need to make a quick stop at the market to pick up some Halloween candy for the trick-or-treaters tonight. Sarah would spend Halloween at Mom's house, handing out candy and admiring the little ones' costumes. I'm glad that you're here now, Mom. I've ached to be your daughter again. I'm so sorry I wasn't always there for you, but that's changed now. We'll never be apart again. How many years has it been? Too many, she thought. There's a gentle touch on Sarah's shoulder. Mrs. Thomas? Sarah, it's time for your pills. It's a crisp fall day with Halloween right around the corner. Maple trees signal the coming of winter, wearing their brightly colored red, yellow, purple coats. Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our next writer, John.
Thank you, Lucy. Hello, my name is John Papia. The prompt for the piece I'm reading today was to write a memory poem, a poem about a particular memory from my life. The title of my poem is Wings So Light. I am 12. It's a family wedding, the Italian kind. I'm hiding in a dark corner behind overgrown potted plants from lipstick ants and way too friendly cousins in their colorful party dresses, dangling corsages of overly fragrant flowers, smelling of cheap perfume. The music begins playing. I fear they'll discover me. They will surely want me to dance. And I find myself in awe, watching their feet moving on the dance floor, turn to wings so light. The accordion is dancing with the saxophone dancing with the drums, playing all the favorites, drunk uncles singing along. They go red on every table. An aunt plays her harmonica. Now they're singing "Oh Marie." The dancers are moving in the light. And I find myself in awe, watching their feet moving on the dance floor, turn to wings so light. In the crowd, I see my parents walking slowly, hand in hand, to the center of the dance floor. Slowly turning, they face each other. My mother is glowing, blue eyes twinkling in the dimly lit room. Smoothly, my father's right arm brings my mother close, her head resting on my father's chest. The accordion plays the first notes. Recognizing the song, the crowd begins to sing. Mom and Dad are floating, oh, so gracefully. Stepping out from my hiding place, I am witnessing something magical. I see no one else on that dance floor, only those two, lost in each other's arms. And I find myself in awe, watching their feet moving on the dance floor, turn to wings so light. Thank you. And now I'd like to invite all of our writers back for Q&A.
Bravo to everyone. I'm sure you can hear the applause from our audience afar. Beautiful job, you guys. Absolutely wonderful. I want to open the floor up to the floor. Is it a floor in Zoom? The air up to questions for our writers or about the program. And I'm going to try and see, it's me by myself today, so I'm trying to make sure I don't miss anything. So if you could put things in the chat, if you have a question, please do that so that I can see that. And otherwise, I'm first going to ask the writers, what was different about this class than the last?
Well, I think the aspect of including fiction, poetry, was something a little different. I found that leeway to be interesting, and I want to say thank you to all the writers. I really had a great time, and it was a pleasure to be amongst you.
Great, thank you, Frank. Lucy, go ahead.
I think what was a little different that I can remember from past classes is that a lot of the prompts were much more challenging. And we were limited to a very few amount of words for each, 300 or less. And then we squeaked in a few more here and there. But I think that the prompts were, especially that hira, when we were trying to going, what is this, And it was a good combination of hearing all the writers work on in a different way, from a different approach, from their perspective on these prompts.
Great, thank you, Lucy. Anyone else on that question? I wanted to say that when we, and also just to let you that are listening or watching know that I had them sort of make the prompt shorter just for today. So there's much more to some of them than, I mean, it's a little more than just the word. It's like there's much more instructions, and the same thing with the memory poem. There's a very specific formula that goes to. There's all kinds of stuff, the kind of the details that you don't get here, but I wanted them to refer to it in case people had questions about it. I have to say, one of my favorite things this semester was not knowing whether you were telling truth or fiction, because I really didn't know. And I'm going to use our good friend Gregory as an example in his wonderful, wonderfully fun romp piece that he has about the monkey and the little girl and the whole thing. And I said, oh, well, Gregory, I'm so glad you got to write fiction and blah, 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 blah. And he said, that was completely true, which once again, it proves that truth is always so much stranger than fiction. If you want to speak to that, Gregory, I mean, I think we all kind of thought like, wow, what a great imagination. Not that you don't have a good imagination.
Well, the previous piece that we had was an inanimate object that we had to write about. And that one was completely fiction, which everybody thought was real. So it was fascinating to me to write the next story about the secret and the neighbor and all that. It was a story I've been wanting to tell for years and never had a real opportunity to do. So to be able to do that this time and fool everybody was completely exciting for me, that my writing had such an effect that people would look at it one way or the other and find out that it was completely opposite, which is absolutely fascinating for me. I love that. But the ability to tell my stories in such a way that I have never been able to do before is due to Deborah and this class and the prompts that cause you to think about things. And for me, my biggest challenge was describing things in such a depth that it makes the story more enhanced, more interesting. And that's what I've learned with this class, and I'm so grateful to it. And for all the other writers that we get experiences to hear about and how they do their process in this writing class has just been fascinating also. And I think also with Frank, each and every one of you for having been able to share this with me. And I just really enjoyed it. It's just been tremendous. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you, Gregory. And Gregory, I don't know if you were in a shell, but you're definitely out of it if you were before. And it's been incredible to see you grow through these classes and just open up more of your heart and your soul. And I think find things out about yourself really throughout the process. Yes. We have a couple of different questions that are popping in. Someone just thank you that told me that the chat was not working. And so I now have it working. So if you were trying to chat or leave a comment, now it's working. So I apologize for that. One of the questions was to anybody, what has this class meant to you? What has it meant working in a group like this or in a class like this? Ellie, go ahead.
I really love the intimacy that is created in the class. The sharing of memories from our lives and just letting myself be vulnerable, just even to write and trust that people will not think I'm horrible. Yeah, it's just the connections and the intimacy that have developed over this class period. And I thank you, Deborah, for giving us that opportunity. And I thank everyone for making it a safe and inspiring time together. So
great. Thank you, Ellie. I had a couple of other hands up. Megan and Lori, did you have your hand up? Lori did too. Okay, Megan and then Lori.
Thank you. I just wanted to say what an inspiring teacher you are, Deborah, and the fellow class members, and how it was a safe place to write and explore. It's always something that I'd wanted to do, and it felt like a really good space to do it in, and I'm so appreciative of all of you. So thank you.
Great.
Really gained a lot.
Thank you, Megan. Lori, go ahead.
Just a repeat on what's already been said, but for me personally, there's an element of truth in all my stories and that shy factor thing. So just to develop that confidence to be able to speak and be heard has been really a blessing. And to all of you, thank you.
Thank you, Lori. And for those of you that don't know, I'm just going to pick on Lori. And there's actually not just Lori. There's like 3 or 4 people in this class that are not in LA. We still do have some Zoom classes, and we have classes in person. But Lori's coming to us from Canada. John is in Northern California. Frank and Lucy are a few hours out of Los Angeles. And so it's been a great community to pull everyone close in from far away. And I feel like we've gotten to know you so well, Lori, that you have to come so we can see you in person. I have a question, a comment actually from Lana. I thought the stories were absolutely wonderful. Frank's story really started me thinking about lost or missed opportunities in my life. It touched me with its insight and use of language and rhythm. Was the story about an incident in your life of the path less traveled, or actually about a real life experience with the circus?
Well,
okay, Lucy is Frank's
right,
wife. I'm just gonna mention that Lucy's his wife, and that's why she's laughing this loud. And John is his brother, and that's why he's laughing. They're laughing harder than anyone else. Not at your question, Lana, but at how he's going to answer.
I have some experience with the circus. I did have a couple of day job putting up the circus tents for Circus Vargas. And that was actually a pretty interesting experience. You know, it was like old school. They used the elephants to roll out the tents and pull it up. So that was very exciting. But no, I'm sure, yes, there are some paths less traveled, sure, for everyone. But no, this is just entirely fiction. It does touch upon, you know, that wanderlust of an 18-year-old, you know, wanting to get out, but not being, you know, not really sure of what's going to happen, but knowing that, you know, in his soul, I've got to go, I've got to do something. And I used a small town to increase, you know, the boredom and that feeling. But no, it was a fiction piece. But I wanted to comment a little bit. There's a question here from ZP, which I think might be my daughter, Zoe Pepino. Yes, I guess there are, and she asked, what drew you to specific, this is for everyone, specific prompts, and some easier to connect to others. And we kind of answered that, and some were easier just because of life experiences. And how did we choose the one? You know, it's the one that reaches you the most, I think, that touches you the most.
But I will say that I don't choose the stories for the students to read. They choose the stories, but I do give them time to discuss with each other which stories really kind of landed with them, so that they have some input from others. I don't ever choose for them because I feel like they have to want to tell the story. It's one thing to share the story in a very closed community of our classroom, but we're opening it up on the internet or in person when we're performing here live at the theater, that it's really up to the writers themselves. And so, and they don't get a choice of the prompts. They have to do all of them because they get an assignment every week. So that you don't get a choice. I mean, do I tell you how to write it? No. Can you interpret it any way in the world? Absolutely. But you have to do your homework. So Lucy, I'm going to take your question or comment, and then I have a question for Nina after that. So go ahead, Lucy.
Yeah, okay. So in response to that, I think the Hirath prompt that we were given, had a little bit of research to it, because it's not translatable into English. And so we talked about, longing, nostalgia, something that has to do with the heart, that conveys a distinct feeling of missing something irretrievably lost. And so, I when I first looked at that, I thought, okay, well, let's see, a story. If I put in a lot of personal things, true things, I felt like it was going to become kind of mushy, and so I challenged myself, because I do like writing poetry, probably better. I think writing poetry is far easier for me than to write a story. And you have to be really careful about selecting your words. But when I got into that, I looked at haiku, and then that was the syllables. And I looked at loons, of which John had written a loon last class, or the class before. And loons are not syllables, they're words, 3 words, 5 words, 3 words. Well, the column loon is that, as I learned after that. But I mean, I was challenging myself and learning not just about writing about Hirath, but how can I express using so few words? Because each of those 3 words, 5 words, 3 words stands alone. And then I just wrote 6 of them and sort of rearranged them to kind of get a flow. So that's what I really liked about, because I put a lot of work in, I really liked about this assignment, because of that word choice and trying to get the distinct feeling I wanted to get from very, very few words. So I don't know if that answered the question, but.
Great. Thank you, Lucy. And let us go to the question that from Judy in the audience. Nina, was your story based, was your story truth-based?
Oh, yes, it was. I did augment it a little bit by changing the dog to a horse. Seemed a little more, I don't know, exotic,
Great. Thank you, Nina. Thank you. And people are saying happy birthday, Jackie. Is it really your birthday today? Happy it really birthday. Is? I didn't even know that. Okay, never mind.
That's why I chose that one to do.
Yeah, I thought so.
If I did not another day.
Yeah. Silly me, did not get that. So thank you. Thank you, Mike. He said it was fun to hear your story, especially today. And then Lana, again, I like the way Jackie expressed her feelings about racking up another number in her birthday years. It's her birthday after all. I found it insightful that she's not letting a number get in the way. Jackie, have any of your birthdays hit you harder than others? Oh, you muted yourself.
Lana, did you ask that question? She's my best friend from high school. So we have been celebrating since we were 16 years old. So no.
Okay. I love how people are like, I'm not answering that question if I know that person. Yeah. Oh my goodness. No. Somebody had asked a question. I don't want to skip it and I don't want to take too much more time. That is, how is this different from stage stories 1, 2, and beyond words? And the answer is, it's hard. I think it's harder. I think that the higher the stage stories 1, I mean, they're all difficult because writing is always difficult. I don't care if you've been writing a million years, it's never easy to sit down with a blank piece of paper. But what's different is that this one, we also discussed the writing process a little more. We talked a little bit more about that. We had some deeper discussions about writing, about different, how people approach things. And then we also, as they've mentioned, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the class, we don't go completely out of memoir because we're always, like I said, well, we just saw Nina's story was based in truth. Gregory's was, I think almost everyone else. John, your story was based in truth, right? Remembering your parents dancing. Megan, yes. Yours was, Ellie's was true. Did I miss anybody? I think everyone, Lori, yours was not true. True, that's right. See, I can't even remember. So that great, true, totally true. So and we didn't. I don't tell them when they. I mean, it's just more open. I'll just say that, and there's more room for interpretation. And this group has been. I mean, not everybody has been together, so that's not even true. I was about to say like everybody's been together, but people have taken the other classes because we do it by prerequisite. Like you have to take one before you take the next, just so we keep a flow of everything going. And then by this, you know, I think by the time they get to Stage Stories 3, it's a little easier to, you know, there's sort of a shorthand in the way we speak with each other. But let me, hold on, we have, oh, go ahead, Lucy, we have another question too.
No, I was just saying with my second piece, the Maple Leaves and Halloween, it wasn't fiction, but it wasn't, and it wasn't memoir. It was, I took parts of, you know, the Halloween thing, parts of those are true, but I never bought a house next door to move my mother into. So, but I mean, you know, it was just and I think writers do that. They start from what they know the best, which is their lives. And those are the truths. And then they go from there and embellish. And like Nina said, she changed the dog to a horse. And it was, you know, a little bit, like she said, more exotic, which was kind of cool, you know. Yeah.
Or you can live next door to somebody who has an ocelot and a monkey and a wild daughter like Gregory, and then who knows what's going to happen. And also, I also want to point out, like Megan, growing up in South Africa, you know, your reflections on your nanny and what did you call the other person? I mean, I know his name, but I don't know if he was a butler or a...
He was the gardener.
He was the gardener. He was the gardener, but
Yeah.
They were of service to your family, and you were writing about a time when that was the norm. That was the norm. But your feelings, you know, looking back and writing that piece about how even as a young girl, you felt the guilt in being taken care of in that way by other people. And it's just a really beautiful, beautiful story. Okay, I just want to say that the Papillas are taking over because now Tony, who I think is your sister, Frank and John, is saying, for Frank's story, at times our childhood was somewhat of a circus in a good way. John's story brought tears to my eyes, and I could also see my parents dancing while he told his story. John, that story gets me every time. It's a beautiful, I can literally see your parents in that. I can feel, more than seeing, I feel the movement of them dancing. Right. It's just really beautiful.
That's how I felt when I wrote it too.
Yeah, that movement comes straight through in your writing. So, well, I'm gonna tie everything up. I want to thank our writers who have given unbelievably in this class, who have just bared their souls and taken risks and just completely trusted each other and myself with their stories. And we are going to connect, my friends. We will end the webinar when I push the button, but I will connect with you guys about what's next. And for those of you that are tuning in, we have 5 other classes that are going on right now that are going to be having performances the first week in December, some of them live here at the theater and some of them on Zoom, and you will all be invited to all of those. And then the Creative Aging Program has incredible things that are happening with it. We have completely more than just expanded, exponentially expanded the program since we started. And there will be new classes, new stage stories. The classes I teach will be starting in January. And then we will also have some scripting classes going on with William Nedved, which are wonderful classes. And then we will also have another arts camp coming up for older adults, which is kind of like going to camp if you're over 50. And it's really, any of you that did it, it's so much fun. We have like 2 or 3 days of just arts and incredible teachers. Some of the artists from our stage come and teach, and it's just fantastic. So I want to thank everyone for joining. I hope those of you out there listening, thank you to all the other students who have joined in. And I'm going to give a special shout out. Thank you, Charlene, who joined us as well, who has been a help to our department along the way and who's now working in Spain. And she joined us this afternoon as well. And a lot of my other students are there. And I want to thank you all for tuning in. And I will definitely tell these students to listen to your presentations as well, because that support means everything. Lots of bravos from everyone. I will be in touch with all of you. And for those of you out in Zoom land, please get in touch with me. My email is, well, it's dpascaret. You can see it on the screen, dpascaret@thewallis.org. Any information about upcoming classes I can give you. And I want to thank all of my students here in the class. And I will be in touch with all of you soon. Take good care, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.